Let me make two comments on the restaurants, and the president understands this. This was emphasized this morning. First of all, we want to make sure that the states.
Hello chào các bạn, hôm nay là ngày 17 tháng 3 năm 2020. Hôm nay là ông Tổng thống Donald Trump có buổi họp báo trong đội là lực lượng đặc biệt về virus chống virus corona nha các bạn. Trong thời gian đang nói về những cái chính sách về tài chính để giúp cho những người Mỹ trong cái thời gian mà nghỉ việc hoặc là ảnh hưởng của virus corona. Ok, thông tin mới nhất mà Vũ muốn chia sẻ các bạn là những cái hồ sơ mà về di trú cũng như có lịch phỏng vấn từ ngày 19 tháng 3 nha các bạn, từ Đại sứ quán Mỹ ở Việt Nam sẽ tạm hoãn và cancel những cái buổi phỏng vấn những buổi phỏng vấn này từ sau ngày 19 tháng 3. Không những cái appointment 19 tháng 3 và những cái hồ sơ mà đã được hoàn tất accepted và là hoàn tất 6 bước rồi thì chắc chắn là cũng sẽ bị ảnh hưởng và sẽ bị dời ra. Thì trong cái thời điểm hiện tại thì không thể biết được cái hồ sơ những cái thời gian xử lý như thế nào được, vì nếu mà cái dịch bệnh này càng giải quyết càng sớm càng tốt, càng sớm thì nó sẽ xử lý nhanh hơn. Còn nếu mà nó kéo dài thì những hồ sơ đó chắc chắn là sẽ chậm lại, vì bây giờ chính phủ Mỹ đang tập trung giải quyết cái nạn đại dịch virus corona và tập trung giải quyết trong cái đất nước Mỹ trước. Còn những cái hồ sơ mà di trú thì chắc chắn là sẽ không có ưu tiên bây giờ và chắc chắn sẽ bị chậm trễ lại. Bây giờ mời các bạn xem tiếp những cái thông tin về buổi họp hôm nay của ông Tổng thống Trump. Nhưng mà có một cái thông tin quan trọng là ở thành phố San Francisco hôm qua đã tạm thời đóng cửa và gọi là giới nghiêm tất cả những người trong thành phố San Francisco đi ra ngoài nếu mà không thật sự cần thiết, từ tối hôm qua đến ngày 5 tháng 4 nha các bạn. Không biết là có bạn nào từ thành phố San Francisco không? Nếu mà có từ thành phố San Francisco có thể liên hệ với việc di trú thì chúng ta có thể trao đổi thêm để cho có buổi phỏng vấn thêm để biết thêm về tình hình ở San Francisco. Mời các bạn theo dõi giúp nhé.
Big one in the fall. Well, the governor of Ohio is doing a great job. He called it off, and we'll see what happens. It's a court case, and it hasn't been fully determined yet. But if he called it off, I could understand that because he's definitely somebody that knows what he's doing. We'll be seeing what very soon. They're going by the rule of 10 as opposed to 50, and that's pretty tough. I would say probably you could violate that if you wanted to for an election. I just think an election is a very special thing. He chose a different date, I think a date sometime in June. But that would be a decision that would be made by him. He felt it was necessary. The courts are Somebody's challenging it, so the courts will ultimately decide.
Well, what are you doing to ensure that further elections, if we're still in this situation a month from now, 2 months from now,
What I'm doing, John, is very simple. We're getting rid of this virus. That's what we're doing. That's the best thing we can do. By the way, for the markets, for everything, it's very simple solution. We want to get rid of it. We want to have as few deaths as possible. This is a horrible thing. You look at what's going on with Italy. We don't want to be in a position like that, but a much larger, because we're a much larger country. We don't want to be there. And I think we've done really well. I think we've done well. I think the states have done well. We're all working together. The best thing we can do is get rid of the virus. Once that's gone, it's going to pop back like nobody's ever seen before. That's my opinion. But I think it'll pop back like nobody's ever seen before. Please.
Just to follow up on John's question, specifically how many new hospital facilities could the Army Corps of Engineers build? And also, what specific measures are you taking to try to increase the number of ventilators in the stockpile?
We've ordered massive numbers of ventilators. We have, by any normal
Phóng viên đang hỏi về cái số mà bệnh
respirators,
viện
ventilators.
được chuẩn
We
bị
have
cho
tremendous
cái
amounts of
dịch
equipment, but
virus
compared
corona
to
này
what
á.
we're talking about here, this has never been done before. And yesterday I gave the governors the right to go order directly if they want, if they feel they can do it faster than going through the federal government. Now, we've knocked out all of the bureaucracy. It's very direct, but it's still always faster to order directly. And I gave them, that was totally misinterpreted by the New York Times on purpose, unfortunately. But it's very important. Yes, Mike?
I could amplify.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, thank you. The President directed us to work with the Department of Defense. There's two ways that DoD can be helpful in terms of expanding medical capacity. I know the Governor of New York has asked us to look at the Army Corps of Engineers, which could perhaps renovate existing buildings. But the President also has us inventorying.
Sáng nay thì tổng cộng ở Mỹ là 4.458 trường hợp đã nhiễm virus corona. Chúng ta sẽ trở lại xong với bản tin này nha. Vũ muốn giới thiệu các bạn hai cái video là cái thông tin về cái thông tin về từ trang web của Đại sứ quán và lãnh sự quán Hoa Kỳ. Thì đây là những thông tin chính thức từ Đại sứ quán, những cuộc hẹn sẽ tạm hủy từ ngày 19 tháng 3 nha các bạn. Những các bạn mà có những cái có appointment mà hẹn thì sẽ bị hủy, và các bạn nên liên hệ với lãnh sự quán để sắp xếp lại cái cuộc hẹn của mình. Các bạn có những cái câu hỏi nào thì có thể comment trên cái video này, thì Vũ sẽ trả lời cho các bạn nhé. Ngoài ra có một video, một clip mà Việt Di Chú muốn giới thiệu các bạn là về những cái bạn nào mà trong tuần này có những cái chuyến bay mà đi từ Việt Nam qua Mỹ mà có những cái lo lắng gì về những cái ảnh hưởng của dịch corona đến cái vấn đề đi qua những cái sân bay, như ở đây thực tế là sân bay ở thành phố Tokyo nha các bạn. Các bạn nên coi cái clip này để biết cái tình hình như thế nào. Chúng ta trở lại coi cái buổi trực tiếp của với Tổng thống Donald Trump về virus
a wide
corona
range
nhé.
of services via telehealth without ever having to leave home. And these services can also be provided in a variety of settings, including nursing homes, hospital
Giờ
outpatient
mà
departments, and more.
chính phủ
And
khuyến
thanks
khích
to the
người
leadership
dân
of
ở nhà
HHS, we'll also be
để phòng
temporarily
ngừa cái virus
relaxing certain
corona.
HIPAA requirements so that doctors can provide telehealth with their own phones. And we'll be using enforcement discretion when it comes to collecting copays so that cost won't be a barrier. This is a part of our larger efforts around, and as we are encouraging Americans to stay home whenever possible, we don't want our Medicare policies getting in the way. And so consider the implications of this. Perhaps an elderly patient with diabetes needs routine checkup, and this has nothing to do with the coronavirus. And so with our new telehealth benefits, this person who's not really, who's at risk for the coronavirus doesn't have to venture outside their home. They can talk to their doctor via Skype, and they don't have to risk exposure to the virus, and they can receive that care from the safety of their own home. It could be another Medicare recipient who's experiencing mild flu-like symptoms, and instead of leaving the house and sitting in a waiting room full of other vulnerable people, they can also receive advice from their doctor from their home. And this shift is very important for clinicians and providers who over the coming weeks will face considerable strain on their time and resources. And now Medicare patients who don't absolutely need to come in to an office won't have to. And this allows the healthcare system to prioritize for care for those that are that have more needs or in dire need, and preserves protective equipment as well. State Medicaid agencies can also provide telehealth services without federal approval, and so we're asking all states to make this available as well. And we've also asked private insurance companies to expand their telehealth benefits and make it clear to their providers and their members what they cover. As our nation seeks to balance the twin imperatives of getting Americans the care
Đây là
that they
những
need
chính sách
during
mà
this
bên
outbreak and limiting the spread of the
về những
virus,
cái chính sách về y
the
tế
impact
mà
of
người
this
dân
historic action
chính
simply
phủ Mỹ
cannot
đang
be
giải thích về
overstated.
những chính sách
In
y
an
tế mà người dân
emergency,
Mỹ
those on the
sẽ
front
được
line shouldn't have to worry about
cung
federal
cấp
rules and red
cho
tape hamstringing
cho
them
người
when
dân
they
Mỹ
need flexibility
trong cái
above
thời
all else.
trong cái
We're doing everything in our power
cái
to
thời
make
điểm
sure
mà
that
dịch
that doesn't
virus
happen.
corona.
I also just want to briefly mention that because of the president's emergency declaration, we do have the ability to provide a lot of Medicaid waivers, and Florida was the first state to be approved. We were able to do that in a matter of days. Thank you.
Any questions,
Yeah,
please?
where do senior citizens go for instructions on how to do the telehealth?
They should call their doctor's office, and their doctor's office can tell them how to do that. Also, there may be some of our Medicare members that may not have access to equipment, so we're asking family members to help with this, but also respecting the requirements around social distancing, and if any of those family members or neighbors have symptoms, they should obviously stay
Will you
away.
be posting numbers also?
That's correct,
That might be the
exactly.
easiest way to do it.
Yes.
If you post in ads, if you post some numbers.
And they can also call our 1-800 Medicare number, and they can also get information. Those phone lines are open.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Admiral, if you'd say a few words about where we're going, and then I'd like to ask Dr. Burks to say a couple of words about how the system's working.
Well, thank you very much. As we talked about earlier this week, the commercial system is rapidly advancing in the testing capabilities. As of today, our public health laboratories, meaning the CDC and the public health labs, have reported out 31,878 tests, so almost 32,000 tests. The clinical laboratories, the Association of Clinical Laboratories, have reported out about 27,000 tests. And most importantly, of those 27,000 during the cumulative period of time, 8,200 of them were yesterday. This is showing the dramatic ramp as the high throughput comes in. We don't have the numbers this morning from the American Hospital Association, which means all the individual hospital laboratories. We will have that upcoming in the next day or so, and then Ambassador Burks will have this whole process fixed with the legislation that everything will roll up into a common reporting probably by the end of next week. In terms of our drive-through laboratories, again, these are blossoming all over the country by individual states. The ones that we are heavily involved in and really pushing equipment to, we expect over the next few days to begin setting up 47 of these in approximately 12 states. The material is already palletized.
Đây là những cái hình ảnh à, thành phố San Francisco đã giới nghiêm cư dân ở trong thành phố vào tối qua đến ngày 5 tháng 4 nha các bạn, là giới nghiêm đó nghĩa hạn chế đi ra ngoài để tránh tiếp xúc và ngăn ngừa cái virus dịch coronavirus. Thì đây là những cái hình ảnh các bạn có thể thấy là những hình ảnh mà người dân trước khi cái thông báo đó ra thì người dân chuẩn bị đi mua. Người dân chuẩn bị đi mua sắm những cái lương thực cần thiết để giới nghiêm trong khoảng 2 tuần các bạn, ở thành phố San Francisco. Cali thì bây giờ khoảng là 456 ca nhiễm rồi.
Giả làm khách thuê phòng, những đối tượng này đã nhiều lần vào.
Chúng ta trở lại buổi họp trực tiếp của Nhà Trắng nhé các bạn.
We were adamant about having a high quality test based on our commercial vendors. Over the next few months, you will begin to see that other tests that were utilized around the world were not of the same quality, resulting in false positives and potentially false negatives. These tests were studied by the FDA to really ensure that they are that level of quality, and we've given the states the permission to ensure that same level of quality. Now, I want to just say 1 minute on the testing. Testing should not be used as an assessment of your risk. We are asking every single American, no matter what your generation, from Z and up to X and millennials in between, to really ensure that you're following these guidelines. We hear every night of people who are not in work, moving that time into bars and other areas of large gatherings. If we continue with that process, we will fail in containing this virus. So every single generation has a role to play. We're asking our older generation to stay in their homes. And we're asking the younger generations to support them in social contacting through videos and other Skype-type functions, or just the simple telephone. We're asking the younger generations to stop going out in public places, to bars and restaurants, and spreading asymptomatic virus onto countertops and knobs and grocery stores and grocery carts. I heard an innovation last night and this morning again on the news. I really want to applaud the private sector who are now creating senior-only shopping times. I think that's extraordinary. I think that shows what America brings, and I think other countries will learn from us about how to really protect seniors in this type of way. I'm hoping it carries through to next year when we have our flu epidemic, where we can really have a very different profile of the amount of mortality that we have during flu that we never talk about. Anywhere from 15,000 to 45,000 individuals are lost every year. If we learn how to do this well and sustain some of those core changes, we can change the way respiratory viruses, not only for this, but the future, affect Americans.
It's a big thing.
Yeah, so a question on the clinical data. So we've had now roughly 5,000 people test positive. We've had 90 deaths or so. When are we going to know the data of who those people are? Who is better affected, what the ages are, what the pre-existing conditions are, how serious it was, both for those who have been tested positive, but also those who have died?
Well, you're singing my sheet of music. I'm very data oriented, so thank you for bringing up this issue of data. I really want to applaud HHS. We had a discussion about this several days ago. They've made calls into Seattle and California to really understand that, and also importantly to understand how many of their patients needed ventilators, how many of them needed oxygen support, how many of them needed and what they needed. Could we predict early someone who was going to have a more difficult course? These are all the questions we're asking and answering right now. We did get an early report back from Santa Clara and Seattle. We're digesting it. We just got it this morning. We're looking at that carefully because we think that roadmap is very important to other communities. We have not discussed this with New York yet. We do know from other countries, and that all is available online, that profile. You can see that mortality under 30 is extraordinarily low. The mortality across the board outside of Wuhan is now settling somewhere around 0.7, but that should not be reassuring because it's much higher in people with pre-existing medical conditions, even if young, and people that are older with pre-existing medical conditions. And so we still want every American focused on doing what they can do today to change the course of this pandemic.
We're committed to making that data public so we will all know.
We're committed not only to making it public, but to have a website that everyone can see in real time.
Dr. Burks, if I...
Hello bạn Thắng Hoàng. Bạn hỏi là hồ sơ của bạn là tháng 11 năm 2010 thì bây giờ đến lượt. Cho Vũ hỏi là của bạn là diện F4 hay là diện là hiện F3 vậy?
Guidance to their residents. Is it important for the success of the effort that 100% of the states be forward-leaning on this? And if so, Mr. President, what would be your message to those states that have not? Okay.
So that's why the Vice President and the President yesterday issued those critical guidelines. As I said this morning on Fox and Friends, you can look at them as guidelines, you can look at them as requirements, and you can look at them as the president asking every American in every state to follow those. That's why we put them out at the federal level. We wanted to make sure every American knew what they could do today to change the course of this epidemic. I think it's empowering. I think it says all of us have a social responsibility to each other, and that's why we believe that every mayor and every governor should be instituting these guidelines that came from the White House and the President of the United States.
And we've been very tough on those states. I know exactly what you're talking about. We've been very tough on that. Thank you. Please, go ahead.
A follow-up question on the testing. You've been telling us for days now that millions of tests have been sent out. So why have fewer than 60,000 people actually been tested?
I think you will see different numbers this week. You heard just at 8,000. Remember, all of these tests, the high-speed tests, were approved last Friday night, and last Thursday night. I think if I could talk to Thermo Fisher and the other groups that have these platforms out there, do not rely on a pull technology push out those tests. Because we can only make them available, groups have to order them. So we've been talking to Thermo Fisher, one of the key platforms, to push out tests based on need and not wait for orders.
Is that what the issue is, getting the tests out, or is it getting the tests conducted?
That's a great question. I know part of it is getting the test out right now. I think the Admiral and others are working on getting the issues related to getting the test conducted. Obviously, that does take time. He is working on innovative solutions that are creative and sustainable, that will be a game changer in testing, but we don't have the data yet. This is a critical comparator. Can you do it yourself? Can you actually sample yourself? These are the kinds of things we're working on right now, and he's getting the data for us.
And the states are actually doing a lot of it. The governors and the states are doing a lot of it, with even our tests. Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Can you give us a sense of how long these tough new restrictions will need to be in place until we start to see the rate of this virus going down? And also, can you speak to this study that as many as 2.2 million people in the United States could die if there weren't this type of action by the government taken? To what extent did that prompt what we saw yesterday?
I think, models are models, and they're based on input, and they're based on infectiousness with.
Một thông tin cho những người muốn về thăm Việt Nam mà về có chuyện đột xuất, nếu mà có chuyện quan trọng nha các bạn, thì từ ngày 17 tháng 3 Việt Nam sẽ ngừng cấp thị thực cho những công dân Hoa Kỳ và Việt kiều. Còn những người mà đã có thị thực nhập cảnh vào Việt Nam thì sẽ kiểm tra y tế và cách ly bắt buộc 14 ngày. Như vậy là nếu mà Việt kiều hoặc là công dân Mỹ về Việt Nam, nếu mà có chuyện quan trọng á, thì các bạn chuẩn bị tâm thế là sẽ bị cách ly 14 ngày khi về Việt Nam.
And cancel things that we can cancel to really free up hospital beds and space. And then let's do everything that we can to ensure that we don't need the ventilators because we protected the people who would have needed to use them.
And are you looking at the possibility of more actions like, for example, limiting travel within the United States? Are you looking
It's possible. It's possible. We'll see how it goes. I think there's been great cooperation with local governments, states. We'll see how it goes. It's going right now pretty well. Yeah, please go
Can I
ahead.
follow on that, Mr. President,
Please,
very quickly?
yeah.
Just very quickly. Do you need to invoke the Defense Production Act to get more of those medical supplies to different
Well,
hospitals?
we're able to do that if we have to. Right now, we haven't had to, but it's certainly ready. If I want it, we can do it very quickly. We've studied it very closely over 2 weeks ago, actually. We'll make that decision pretty quickly if we need it. We hope we don't need it. It's a big step.
Need more help from the federal government when it comes to those supplies.
You know, when you say the states, in particular, 3 states need some help, and some states, have 2 people, 3 people, no people. In the case of, again, West Virginia. So we're looking at it very closely. We've taken it apart 15 different ways. It's a very difficult thing to do. It's a very big step, and if we need that step, we'll take it. Okay?
First question. A lot of people have got travel to places that aren't considered hotspots,
Yeah.
Caribbean, Mexico, that sort of thing over the next few weeks. Would you recommend that they follow through with those plans?
I would just say enjoy your home stay. I would just say right now, we have to get this problem fixed, and then we'll get back into business really quick. We'll open up our country, we'll open up our society, the world will hopefully open up. We see areas of the world that haven't done well, and we see areas that are doing very well, and I would put us in the category of doing very well for a country so big. I think that I would recommend that they just enjoy their living room. John. Yeah, go ahead, please.
What do you say to people who are not heeding these guidelines from the White House? And then also I have a question on asymptomatic people, Dr. Bruce.
I'm not happy with those people if they're not. But those people are being shouted down by other people. They know they're being, it's almost like self-policing. People went in, there were a couple of instances, I guess, probably more than a couple, where people are not happy when they see others doing what they're not supposed to be doing. We have to get rid of this. We have to win this war, and ideally quickly. Because the longer it takes, it's not a good situation. And I'm not even talking about the economy. I'm talking about the lives of a lot of people. Yeah, please, did you have one?
Will the White House put any restrictions on corporate bonuses for companies that do get bailed out like airlines?
I'm going to ask, I think I'm going to ask Mike to answer that question.
I think it's all a work in progress. What President Trump has made clear to industries around the country is that we're going to do whatever it takes. We understand this is an extraordinary moment in the life of our nation. It's the reason why the president brought in leaders of the financial sector, airline industry. He'll meet with all additional industry leaders today in tourism and hospitality. But he has tasked the Secretary of the Treasury to work with members of Congress in both parties.
Trên buổi họp báo sáng hôm nay ngày 17 tháng 3 chủ yếu là Tổng thống Trump và nội các nói về những vấn đề về tài chính, giúp đỡ những người Mỹ về cái financial, về những cái tài chính, và có thể là theo bộ ngân khố tài chính là có thể giúp tiền cash cho những trong thời gian tới sẽ giúp đỡ một số cái số tiền cho những cái công dân Mỹ ảnh hưởng vì cái virus corona này.
I would say the 11 biggest in this country. I guess probably the 11 biggest in the world, the big ones, all the big ones, and they did things on copay that nobody would be doing, that they wouldn't have done in a million years, but they're doing it. There's a great spirit going on right now in the country. So you want to, yes, please.
Dr. Fauci, you said you like being accused of overreacting because that is an indication we may be doing things necessary to beat this, bend the curve. How long do you think it will take for you to be confident that yes, we're bending the curve, or no, we're not?
You know, I can't give you a firm number on that because the dynamics of outbreaks in some respects are predictable historically. They do this and that. We don't know because this is really unprecedented. I mean, of all the outbreaks that I've been involved with over the last at least 36 years and then going historically back, we've never had a situation where the mobilization of all the different components, travel restrictions, internal containment, mitigation, financial assistance, public health assistance, testing. So we don't really know. But the one thing I do know that if you look at models with all of their vicissitudes of models, is that when you have input into the kinds of mitigations and things that we're doing, we're going to see a hump instead of a peak. I would be really surprised if all the things that we're doing, and this is really a comprehensive approach. I was struck as I was listening to everyone make their presentations that, you know, I'm a scientist, I'm a health person, and I'm a physician who sees patients. So I look at it from one particular standpoint. But what I'm being impressed by is that this is really a comprehensive thing that has multiple components to it. All of them got to succeed if we're going to get to that end point that I've described multiple times from this podium. So I hope that if everyone does their job, we're going to be able to give you a number and say, you know, we've seen that inflection and we're coming down. I would hesitate to do it now, to be honest with you, because it might be misleading, and I don't want to be misleading. I just want to say one other thing, because I heard Dr. Burke say it, and I think we need to say it over and over again. When I was young, a long time ago, I felt that I was invulnerable, the way I think many of us feel we're invulnerable. And when we're asking the young people to help us with this mitigation strategy by staying out of the bars, staying out of the restaurants, really trying to distance yourself, don't get the attitude, well, I'm young, I'm invulnerable. You are, well, in some respects, you're certainly less vulnerable than I am. However, what you might inadvertently do, and I know you don't want to do that, you don't want to put your loved ones at risk, particularly the ones who are elderly and the ones who have compromised conditions. We can't do this without the young people cooperating. Please cooperate with us. Thank you.
Dr. Fauci, and I'm going to read my notes so I get this right, but there's apparently a new study out of China. It found that the vast majority of cases, 86%, were in untested patients with mild to no symptoms. So what does that say about the impact of testing, and does it mean that testing should actually go beyond the sickest patients?
You know, that question keeps coming up, and I'm not going to evade the question, but I want to make a point. We tend to think that we're not going to be able to mitigate or contain without testing. They complement each other in some respects, but they're separate channels. Even if we had no testing, we should be doing what we're doing now. The question you're asking, so I won't evade it specifically, would it be important outside of a doctor-patient coming in together, of knowing what's out there, what might be under the radar screen? The answer to your question is yes. So let me tell you what the CDC is doing right now. They're going out there, and part of their program is to get a feel for what is there that wasn't initially thought to be coronavirus, that was thought to be something else. When you do that, you're also going to get a feel of what the penetrance is in society. So we are heading with the high throughput things that you've been hearing about to get an answer to your question.
Governor Cuomo said this morning he believes that we'll see a peak in terms of infection in 45 days. Would you concur with that?
You know, it's possible. I mean, I know that the governor has been really, I believe, doing a really good job of trying to stay ahead of this. 45 days is not unreasonable. You have to be careful. When you get a number, you own the number, and then if the number doesn't come out, you're in trouble. And that's the reason why, from our standpoint, from the federal government, we're talking about a range. So within that range, I mean, it isn't like you want to be correct for the sake of being correct, but you don't want to be wed to something and then have to back off.
When is the soonest that we'll know that these new guidelines are actually bending the curve or actually working? And is there a point in time where you know, in the next couple of weeks, where you'll be able to tell the president more draconian measures are needed?
Well, okay, so what's happening, I mean, if you look as a metaphor, it's kind of like a race against the virus. If left to its own devices, will do this. And us trying to somehow blunt that. Now, you could see the virus going up and up, and your effect, your work, what you're trying to do, may actually be having an effect, but you may not see it because it'll still be going up. And as you're trying to implement your interference with the virus, you may not realize that you're actually interfering. And you'll say, wait a minute, it's still going up. What's going on? You've done nothing. But you don't know whether it would do this versus that. So the answer to your question, it probably would be several weeks and maybe longer before we know whether we're having an effect. It may be at the end of the day, we'll see a curve that would have been way, way up. But I wouldn't put us to task every few days. Well, wait a minute, it's going up. Is it working or not? That would be really misleading if we do that.
Go ahead, regarding the 15-day guidelines which were announced yesterday. One of those guidelines was a recommendation against gatherings of 10 or more people. And today, the governor of Alabama issued her own guidelines, and it was a recommendation against gatherings of 25 or more people. What is your recommendation for people of Alabama, people across all of the country, as far as the guidelines that were announced yesterday by the federal government?
Okay, so the one thing we don't want to do is to get hung up on the difference between 10 and 25. I think you might agree with that. When we give guidelines, they're only guidelines. We sit down, we look at the data, as Dr. Burke said, we're data-driven, and we say, on different models, 10 looks good. If someone wants to do 25, we're not going to fault them, but if someone wants to come to us and ask us what we think the best is, we stand by the numbers. It isn't perfect, it isn't precise math, it's assumptions and it's data that make you get your decision.
Would it be more effective if every state and every city in the country was playing by the same rules instead of different?
Of course. But this is the United States of America. There's a lot of free enterprise there. People do their own thing. And quite frankly, I don't think there's a big deal difference between 10 and 25. We got many, many more important things to worry about than that difference.
Mr. President, thank you. Going back to supply chains and then talking about preparedness for the future, yesterday Larry Kudlow said that there's an idea floating around the administration to cut taxes for companies who would be bringing their supply chains back to the United States. He said he specifically liked immediate 100% write-offs for structures, equipment, but he said you hadn't endorsed that yet. Would you endorse an idea like that?
We're looking at many ideas, that's one of them, frankly, and we're looking at creating incentives for companies, not only that type of company, but other companies. We're also looking to help companies such as the airline industry within the airline industry, and we'll be doing that. We will be doing that. This is not their fault. And they've been very understanding, actually, and we're going to be helping them. We will have a very powerful airline industry, and it'll start up as soon as this is over. We'll have those planes ready to go. So we have to help them during the short term. We're very important. Yeah, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to know, have you taken a look at some of these models, such as the Imperial College London model, that kind of poses a very difficult choice, whether it's shutting down society or overwhelming the healthcare system? Is that something that
we've looked at every model? We've relied on the very talented people, and there's no better team than the people behind me. And I will say that all of the people that have done those models are all in constant touch with Dr. Burks and Tony and everybody that you've been hearing so much from over the last couple of weeks. We've looked at many different models, and the model we have is we want to save a lot of lives. We want to save a lot of lives. If we get too steep on that curve, you're going to lose a lot of lives, perhaps unnecessarily. Now we're going to find out. Everything has a risk. We're going to see. But if people do what we're telling them to do, what we're asking them to do, you're going to see the saving of a lot of lives. Now, Boris, in UK yesterday, you saw what happened. It looked like they were going a different way, but then he went away of similar, I don't know exactly, but I would say we had a conversation yesterday, similar to what we're doing. So a lot of people seem to think this is going to be, we are looking to save the maximum number of lives. Everything else is going to come back. A life is never going to come back, but everything else, our economy is going to come roaring back. You're going to know, we're going to all know that day. Somebody was asking about the day. When will you know? When will you know? We're going to know. All of a sudden, we're going to say, wow, that's looking good. That's looking good. That's looking good. And we're going to be on the other side of the curve. And that's a day that we look forward to. Okay.
Ok, chúng ta sẽ kết thúc coi xem cái buổi meeting của Tổng thống Trump tại Nhà Trắng, chủ yếu là vấn đề về những cái vấn đề tài chính hỗ trợ cho những cái công dân, những chính sách về giúp đỡ những công dân và cũng như những cái hãng xưởng ảnh hưởng của virus corona. Hai điều mà việc di trú muốn nhấn mạnh hôm nay là các bạn là cái thông báo ngừng phỏng vấn những cái là appointment, những cái cuộc hẹn phỏng vấn định cư hoặc là không định cư từ ngày 19 tháng 3 sẽ bị hủy toàn bộ. Và những cái thông tin mới nhất thì lãnh sự quán sẽ cập nhật trên trang web của lãnh sự quán, cũng như về một chuyến bay, những bạn nào đang lo sợ hoặc có những thắc mắc về chuyến bay của các bạn trong sắp tới về là từ Việt Nam về Đài Mỹ mà đi qua cái hãng Nippon của Nhật, thì các bạn có thể xem cái clip này để biết thêm chi tiết cái hành trình này của một thực tế của một bạn ở trên việc di trú đã đi vào ngày hôm qua, vào ngày 16 tháng 3. Ok, đây là những thông tin mới nhất vào hôm nay, vào ngày 17 tháng 3 năm 2020. Các bạn đừng quên nhấn subscribe để cập nhật những thông tin mới nhất về di trú cũng như về cộng đồng Việt Nam ở Mỹ và trên toàn thế giới nhé. Các bạn nhớ rửa tay và tránh đi ra ngoài để tiếp xúc với nhiều người để tránh lây lan coronavirus nhé các bạn. Cảm ơn các bạn đã theo dõi nhé.